So I'm going to do a quick rundown of how I would like you to export images using Lightroom and set them up for the next critique. The idea here is to make things more efficient and organized. So for project 4, what I would like you to do is import your images into Lightroom, go into the Develop module, and just focus on this Basics tab, as well as perhaps cropping, because I know that we talked about some images today that could use a crop to make them a little bit stronger and have less negative space. But don't worry about the rest of these tools unless you really want to try them and are fairly comfortable with them. Just focus on using the gray or the color balance tool, the gray eyedropper, that's what I was going to say. Adjust your exposure so it looks good on screen. Add some contrast if you feel that you need it, but don't go past 20 points. And adjust your highlights, your whites, your shadows, and your blacks in order to ensure that you have enough contrast but have detail in those areas of bright white and dark shadow. And then presence, only really adjust it if you feel like it needs to be sharper using the clarity. And if you feel like you need a little more saturation in your colors, you could pull up either saturation or, if you're doing a portrait, vibrance. But again, for clarity, vibrance, and saturation, only go 20 points max. And then when you're done, go back to the library module, click on Export, and choose your location for where you want to put them. And I'd like you to rename them. You could either rename them here or you could rename them in your file browser after the fact. What I tend to do is to select Custom Name -Sequence. That allows me to put in my name, put in project 4 for this one, and then it'll put in a sequence number. And if you want to go further than that, you could always put in something like foreshortening wide, foreshortening middle, foreshortening long to match the focal length of your camera, or vantage point above, eye level, or below. You can't put them in here. That would be things that you can only put in your final browser after the fact. So keep that in mind. And make sure that they're a JPEG. And in this, I should say, no slashes or other special characters, just dashes, underscores, and spaces should be fine as well. Then for this critique, what I'd like to do is to size down your files by clicking on Resize to Fit. And I'm going to just put in a general number of pixels of 2000 by 2000. And that should be enough that even on one of the larger screens, like I have a fairly large screen that I'm viewing things on, it'll be enough that I can really see a lot of detail, or for those of you that may have larger screens, sharing through Zoom. But it'll limit our file size to not be too incredibly large. You can sharpen, do not watermark, and then like I said, I always have it do show in Finder, so it reminds me what to do when I'm done. And instead of hitting export, I'm going to hit cancel, but you would hit export to actually export out of there. Then when you have them done and out of Lightroom, I'm going to open up a new tab here, and I'm going to share with you a slideshow on Google Slides that I'd like you to use. And what you can do is just grab your files straight out of your file browser. And if you drag it over and drop it into the I should say, a slide after your name. So I'm just dropping in here in the first slot. It should make it relatively full screen. And I'm going to just make a third slide because I want to show you two separate images. And then if you feel the need to share them side by side, you could drop it in, size it down, and then drop your other one in next to it. Try to have them be relatively organized In this case, I'm going to center them, and I'm going to try and make sure that they are the same size and have just a little bit of breathing room next to them. So if you need to do a comparison, which I feel like we had a lot of people wanting to do in the critique today, this would be the best way to do a comparison of images. And then we can just go through them, boom, 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 and the next person goes right underneath. You'll see your name is already put in, and you can add new slides if you need more blank slides for other images. And this should help to speed up and make our critiques more efficient. I feel like our critique today was about 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes, when it probably could have been about 1 hour if we kind of organized things a little bit more clearly. And so this is a way that you upload your files into D2L to submit to me for grading, and you drop them into the slideshow, and we can all view the slideshow. I'll probably screen share it, and then you can each also have it open so you know if you're going to go next, you can have what you're going to say prepared. And if you want to view someone else's slides, if they're, if I'm going through them and you want to view something else, you can be viewing it on your own screen, on your own sort of time, and then ask us to go back to that one to view it as a whole and talk about it. The other thing that I think we're going to try for this next critique is to do groups. So what I'll do is to set up a D2L discussion board for the critique. You'll all, at the very beginning of class, just log in, open up the slideshow, and I'll break you up into groups of 4 probably. So you look at the other people, 3 people in your group. We'll spend maybe 15, 20 minutes where you will just type your feedback in D2L. And then for each group, you will be one of 3 people leading, giving the feedback for that 4th person in your group. And that should make it so that we're not sitting with lots of pauses and quiet time waiting for people to type either in the chat or to come up with something to say in the group. And that way there's 3 people primarily doing the talking for each person. Other people can chime in if they have more to say, but we can kind of focus on getting deeper, more critical feedback from those 3 people and keep things moving relatively efficiently. So I hope that that all makes sense, and we'll give it a try and see if this works.